Hey, number ones, welcome to Metatron's Academy. This video is about me. For once, I never really make videos about me. Occasionally share my personal experiences. But anyways, I don't really need to justify myself. You clicked. I made it obvious with the title. So here we are. There are lots of reasons, I think, as to why some students decide to tackle multiple language learning. All of us in this space, of course, have chosen at least one language. And if you're into language learning, whether it be culturally, for personal interest, or just because you actually want to reach fluency in that language, at least one language you picked, okay? Whether it be English, whether it be French, Mandarin, Japanese, whatever the heck it is. However, there are also many of us, and in fact, let me know if I'm wrong about this in the comments, but there are many of us that tackled multiple languages, whether it be at the same time, whether it be over the years. But how many of you, and that's the question for you, have decided to learn more than one language, have studied more than one language, have reached a decent level in more than one language, and what languages have you been studying? Let me know all of this in the comments so then I can do a little bit of a pattern recognition and see, man, there's a lot of multilingual people in this community or not. Now, when it comes to me, yes, I think we all have different reasons as to why we do this over the years. But generally speaking, I've always been someone who has had a lot of troubles choosing the languages to learn. Maybe not as a teenager, because as a teenager, all I wanted to learn was English because I thought it was the cool language. I want to learn English because everything is in English and I want to learn it. Fantastic. But after picking up English and reaching a decent level of fluency, I started thinking, hey, you know what? I did it with English. I probably could do it with something else. So what should that else be? And this is really a question that we often ask, and it can connect to some people with their career, job path, or maybe family. If you have someone in your family who is a foreigner, or maybe just someone who's bilingual, for instance, because maybe the parents were from another language, from another country, and then you might feel a pull, right? Maybe it's you. Maybe you are like your parents. One was from one country, one was from another. Was interracial marriage, and so you might feel drawn towards a language because of personal family reasons. But a lot of us, we just choose the languages we like. We like the culture, we like the subculture, we like the literature, we love the games, we love the movies, we love whatever the heck, the people, the country. Plenty of reasons. For me, after English, and I decided, you know what, I reached fluency in one language, I'm sure I can do it again. I decided Japanese. And the reason for that is because I always loved Japan. I loved anime. I grew up with anime being very popular in Italy. I don't know if you know this. They get dubbed, so I would watch them in Italian, professionally dubbed. It's excellent. Some of the best dubbing you can find. Voice actors are top notch. So it's not like I heard the language, but, anime, oftentimes it's either, whether it be made in Japan, the style, or whether it be set in Japan, like many. For instance, I can think of like Saint Seiya as one that is not necessarily set, like it's kind of global. Yeah, they are in Japan, but it's kind of global. Or whether it be like an Evangelion, which is set in Neo Tokyo 3, so that one is set in Japan. Whichever it is, all of this drew me towards Japan because this was the place where they were making all this cool stuff that I loved and grew up with. Then there was the gaming revolution. Then there was the fact that, oh gosh, I'm playing Street Fighter, I like Ryu, karate, martial arts, started practicing it, always sucked at it, but I did put a few years in it. You know what? I liked it anyways. And there is also the fact that the history. Then I started getting pulled into the history because of all the samurai movies and games that I was playing. And I thought, wow, Japan is so great. But I never really studied it as a child or as a teenager, which now I kind of regret a little. Well, not really, because I did get to fluency in Japanese. But I'm thinking, man, could you imagine if I had picked it up as a teenager? Regardless, that was the language that I decided to pick up after English because I'm like, I want to do it. That's the one I like. That's the one I'm drawn towards. And so it's fine. I mean, as long as you have you don't have to be necessarily ultra fluent, super proficient, like C2 level, the C1 level in your second language before you tackle the third. But it would be good if you are at least a B2. Because that way you already have communicative experience, you can speak, you can understand quite well, and it's only really, particularly if you're a high B2, then the only things you struggle with are highly technical, or maybe some rare accents. And if that's you, then tackling a third language is absolutely excellent. It's a great way to continue expand if you have the passion for it, which honestly I think everyone watching here does almost. Let me know. So that's when I picked Japanese. And when I say I picked it, I don't mean that I started opening Google, also because, this is quite a few years ago. But I mean that I decided it would be my major at university. And that's, It was a double major for those. There's a lot of confusion online when it comes to what language degree I have, what degree in general I have, because I have the channel about history, I have this channel about languages. So my degree was a kind of a multiple degree, and so double major, if you will. I was learning languages, but it was in a comparative key, because when you learn, when you either become a pure linguist or someone who just does languages, that was not my degree, or you become a comparativist. I was a comparativist, meaning that I would learn languages, and I picked three: English, Japanese, Mandarin. I was already fluent in English though, so I picked that one just to get like free credit so I could focus on, for me it was easy, I didn't have to do anything. And so all I needed to do was then focus on Japanese and Mandarin. And so that was that. But then all the rest of the credits were history and culture. It was a comparative nature of the mythology, the cult, the customs, the culture. And that's why I have such a massive passion for history. Do I have a degree in history? No, neither do I have a degree in languages necessarily. It's a double. So it's a comparative one. It's what it's called. I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, so Japanese was my major, and I started picking it up. Now, at first, I only chose English and Japanese because I already had English down, and Japanese was my third language, if you will. And I put a lot of work into it. First year, ultra focused. Second year, while I did focus on Japanese, and eventually, thanks to a scholarship that I won, I actually moved to Japan for 3 months. That was my first time to perfect it, to practice it, and I did for 3 months every day. Spoke Japanese, came back, took that test. It was so easy. Those 3 months really helped. But then I had a chance to be like, hey, you still have 8 or 16 credits, depending. Do you want to add a language? And I'm like, yeah. And I added Mandarin. And so that year I also started studying Mandarin. And the good thing is that that was the fourth language. Now, was I already fluent in Japanese by then? Well, 2 years academic focus plus 3 months on the field. Was I fluent? No, but I could speak it. I was like maybe an intermediate speaker. And I think that's why it was fine at that point to start learning the fourth language, because the first one, the second language, English, didn't really need anything anymore, not even maintenance. And Japanese required still a lot of study. But I felt I could divert some of that time into Mandarin as well. And regardless, had I not chosen Mandarin, I would have had to choose something else. So I would have still had to study something. It's not like I was still a full-time student, so I might as well at that point. So that's what I did, picked up Mandarin. And the good thing is that within that year of study, not only I frequented the classes and whatnot, but I made friends with a Chinese guy. And so because we became such good friends, he could speak English well, but was still learning Italian. I could speak English well, but I was still learning Mandarin. We would switch a lot. And then whenever we didn't understand, so he didn't understand my Italian, I didn't understand his Mandarin, we would use English when needed. He even moved into my flat for some time, and so it was fantastic. I could practice Mandarin every day. And then I had to actually stop Mandarin because I graduated. And at that point is when I moved to Japan, found a job, and lived there for about 3.5 years, for a total of almost 4 years. That's why I usually reduce it to, I lived in Japan for 4 years, but they were separate. 3 months first, and roughly 3.5, a little more after, for a total of 4 years. And of course, that brought me to complete functional fluency in Japanese. And where is my Mandarin then? Well, I kind of gave up on it for many years because I was like, I got English, I got Japanese. I just want to maintain these. And then I got busy, YouTube, history, and all the rest. Then I started a family. But occasionally I always picked it back up because I'm like, man, I really want to reach fluency in Mandarin. It's one thing that just stuck with me. Like I can speak it, but I'm not fluent. And so if you want to check my Mandarin level, by the way, I'll put a link in the description for couple of videos where I play video games and speak Mandarin as I do, as a good way to practice. That's what I do with all languages, whether it be English, Japanese, Mandarin, whatever. And Mandarin is language number 4. Language number 5 is French. I actually started picking up French at school much earlier in this discussion, but it was just a requirement. It wasn't my choice, which is why I didn't tell you just yet. Yeah, I studied at the school, but I didn't do much. My teacher loved me, though. I think the reason why is because while I was studying French, at one point, my cousin being a native, he's from Paris, I started practicing with him. And then the teacher noticed it. She's like, man, you're using expressions that usually students don't know. Or your pronunciation is getting better. You can still tell I'm not native because I F up the vowels when they're like, yeah, now I think I know it's like drôle for like something is so drôle. Drôle, is it closed? I think it is. But sometimes I'm like, is it chevalier or chevalier? Like I get confused. I think it's chevalier. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. Whatever, but regardless of those, I could have a conversation in French. And maybe I used to be a B1. Now I kind of lost it a lot because I've been focusing on Mandarin like a maniac this last year because I just want to get that one. And then, but I did study it at school, and then I practiced a bit with my cousin, and then I practiced it when I moved to England as well, because when I was learning English, of course, I was in England for 2 years. I'm kind of jumping a little bit in this non-scripted video. But at one point for 3.5 months, maybe 4, was it a little longer than that? Maybe 6 months in England. I actually started going to a church that was predominantly French-speaking because most of them were Africans, French-speaking Africans. And we made friends with all these people, my friend and I. And my friend, the person I was naming now, I was sharing the flat with, was French, from Paris. And so he would speak French to these people, and I would just go there and smile. But then eventually I started picking up things. And so it's funny, but one of the first things I learned to do in French, even before talking about my day-to-day activities, was to pray in French and do the prayers and whatnot, because I would go to this church. Anyways, my French did not continue into university, which is why I put it at language number 5, even though I started learning it earlier than Mandarin, because my Mandarin is objectively better than my French, and that's how I categorize the languages, not by when I start, but by the level I have. Then there is Spanish. I did 1 year of Spanish, and yeah, maybe. I think I think I'm at the level with my Spanish, which is kind of, I understand more than I can speak. But I think if I went to Spain for 6 months, I would get to a decent level. I think I'm at that level, and also because it's easier since I'm an Italian native. And that's where we are really with the 6 languages. I did study some Greek, I did study some Latin, but these are not languages I speak. So I usually, if I put them in there, I don't add them to the numbers. So you'd be like, what's the 7th language? Sicilian. Because I'm double native. And for anyone who says that doesn't count, because I mean, Italian is your native language and so is Sicilian, right? But they are 2 different languages. Sicilian is not a dialect of Italian. Many people misunderstand that. It's a dialect of Latin. Just like Italian, they're sister languages. One is the standard language of the nation, official. The other one is a regional variety. But it's still a different communicative system. The words are different. The grammar is often different. It's clearly related, but so are Spanish and Italian. It's not like we go and say, oh, it's not a different language because the word conversazione sounds similar to conversación, or grazie sounds similar to gracias. Yeah, okay, fine. It's similar, right? In Sicilian, it varies, it changes, and that's just how it is. I like adding it here, also as a little bit of regional pride, if you will. Anyways, why do we do this? For me, it's passion. I love the idea of, I love these languages, and I have this little thing, and I don't know how it happens to you, but whenever I learn a word, particularly if it's a word that I like, I'm fixated with metals, I'm fixated with medieval stuff. If I know the word for wall, city, castle, tower, sword, copper, these are the words that I enjoy the most learning. How many times am I going to use copper in a conversation? Probably not that many, although then again, you don't know how weird my life can be sometimes, but whatever. I still enjoy it, and when I learn the word in a new language, I feel like I added it to my collection. Now I own that word, it's mine, and I can add it to the collection. I love that, and that's what really brings me joy every time I explore a new language. But let me know why, if you're multilingual, you decided to learn many languages and which one you chose. And I'll be looking forward to read your comments. And thank you very much for watching. Bye.